true or false as quickly as possible. The prediction was that if you think about time horizontally, you should be faster to answer a question about time after answering a horizontal spatial prime. If you think about time vertically, then you should be faster to answer a question about time after the vertical prime. And there are three ways that we had of showing that language experience matters in this task. One was simply to compare English and Mandarin speakers, and what we found was that English speakers were faster after the horizontal primes, while Mandarin speakers were faster after the vertical primes. And it's that interaction that's really being predicted by pattern of language. We also compared Mandarin speakers who had learned English early versus late, and we found that Mandarin speakers who had learned English late in life showed more of a vertical bias. So that again showed that language experience, something about language experience matters for this task. And finally, we did a manipulation to show that experience with spatial metaphors in particular is causal. We took English speakers and trained them to talk about time vertically. So they had to say things like Monday's above Tuesday, or Clinton was president below Nixon, and so on, in time, not in other dimensions. And after they received this training, they got the same task as the other groups. And you can see here the English speakers are actually starting to look more like Mandarin speakers. They're no longer faster after the horizontal primes and starting to be faster after the vertical primes. There's been some controversy about this task, which is why I'm talking about it again. And in fact, I also have some complaints about it, so let me list some of the complaints that I have. One is the paradigm is fragile. We've done a lot of work with this paradigm, and the results do sometimes shift unpredictably with things that shouldn't change the results. So that's bad. Other complaint is more conceptual. The vertical and the horizontal primes are not well matched. They use different language, they use different graphical elements. So here we have arrows, here we don't, here we have worms, here we have balls, and so on. So because they're not well matched, this task is not suitable for testing within a language. You can't just find out within a language whether someone has a horizontal or vertical preference, because these things are just two very different things. Another complaint is that three-dimensional space in this task is collapsed into two dimensions. So we can't really test things ahead or behind. They're kind of being convoluted out to left and right. And that's a problem because you want to know actually what the spatial dimensions are of time. The task also wasn't designed to ascertain the direction, just the axis. The question was horizontal versus vertical, but not is the future ahead or is the future behind. You can't tell that with this task. And finally, the task is linguistic. We're asking people to process a sentence and confirm or disconfirm it. It'd be nice to show that patterns in language shape the way you think about time, even in a non-linguistic context of some sort. So we've done a bunch of tasks, and different tasks try to address some of these complaints. Here's one. This is just kind of the simplest thing you could possibly do. In this task, experimenter just stands next to a subject, and there's a subject here. It says, if I tell you that this here is today, where would you put yesterday? The subject is then free to point wherever they want. And say, well, where would you put tomorrow? And so on. And so we can test different types of durations, so breakfast, lunch, dinner, yesterday, today, tomorrow, months of the year, and so on. And when we do this, what we find is that English speakers are very boring. They pretty much always point horizontally and pretty much always from left to right. So if this is today, then this is yesterday, and this is tomorrow. Mandarin speakers, these are folks tested in Taiwan, show a very different pattern. A good proportion of the time they point vertically, and the same is true when they're tested in California, and even when they're tested in English. So again, a very consistent pattern across a bunch of different Mandarin-speaking groups. Let me show you a couple folks here, just so you get a sense. Okay, so one thing you might ask is, do many of the speakers point vertically because they write vertically or they read vertically? We do in fact have evidence that writing